What do you say, everybody? And welcome to the BamaInsider YouTube channel with Clint Lamb. I'm Mick Gillispie. It is time for Monday Night Quarterback. You saw that intro, and that just gets everyone amped up to talk Crimson Tide football tonight. We're going to do that with some great guests, including Clint Lamb, who's coming up here in just a second. But let me tell you about Monday Night Quarterback's big-time sponsor. They're the Nick Saban of condominiums in Tuscaloosa, right there next to Bryant Denny, Westgate Luxury Condominiums. They are like having, 18 national championships. They're right there next to Bryant Denny, by the Walk of Champions, by the Strip, by the everything that you want. Denny Chimes. All right there, westgateal.com. The oversized balconies, you got 1 to 5 bedroom units that go from 900 to 3,000 square feet. The Wolf and Sub-Zero kitchens, man, I promise you, if you're coming into town and you're looking for a place to rent, you can do that. Or if you're looking for an investment, you can buy that as well. Right now, it is still going strong. Get a full year of BamaInsider on 3 for just $1. And like, subscribe, and hit the thumbs up as you hang out with us on Monday Night Quarterback. And again, there he is. I'm Mick Gillispie with Clint Lamb. What is up, my brother? How you been?
Mick, I'm doing fantastic, brother. How you doing today?
Trying to bring the energy, dude. I'm trying to bring the energy because all the people in the comment section are going to hold it against us if we don't bring our best to this show. Roll Tide, all of you guys in there. Good to see Brock and Mike and everyone else hanging out with us. Even if you're in the Philippines, roll Tide, folks. Was that good, Clint? I mean, was that pretty energetic?
Phenomenal. The energy is unmatched. We're ready to rock, man. It's Arkansas week. We got Arkansas, then you got A&M, you got Tennessee, you got Mississippi State. It was a rough first month outside of that Texas game, but we've made it through it, and now it's time to play some real football.
Yeah, and I think that's well put. Let's get into this Vanderbilt game. I wasn't really too amped up about the matchup, right? But Alabama played up to their standards. This wasn't one of the old school games against Vandy where both teams are kind of like putting along. Bama came out there and really just beat the tar out of them. It was a 63-3 final. And Bama's pass rush was ferocious. Will Anderson Jr. looked like a guy that could win the Heisman.
Yeah, you start to look at the numbers and you realize, okay, this guy's got 4.5 sacks through 4 games. So if Alabama plays 15 games, that would include playoff and also, a national championship appearance as well. He would be on pace to be up there near 17.5 like he was last year. Not quite there as far as on pace, but he's pretty close. And considering kind of the narrative with him and really the Alabama pass rush in general through those first couple of games or first few games, I would say that's pretty good. Vanderbilt, to me, going into this game, I thought that the 2 quarterback system would be a lot more utilized. It really wasn't utilized at all. They decided to roll with a true freshman. To me, I think they made the statement very early on. We're not trying to win this football game. We know we can't win this football game. This is more about putting our freshman out there, allowing him to get this much needed experience, setting ourselves up for future opponents and putting him in the best position where he can continue to grow and be successful later. Because if you were actually trying to win that football game, you're playing Mike Wright because of that dual threat ability, whether it be in certain packages, whether it be, having him get the start. I just think that he could have provided a lot more challenges than a guy like, Swan did, mostly because he's a mobile quarterback, but he's more so going to be a guy who's going to play within the pocket, has a better arm, but with Alabama's pass rush and their secondary, that combination, you're not really going to be able to test them deep and test them with a lot of air, throwing the football through the air. So I just thought that Mike Wright would have been the way to attack this game if you were trying to win, but they might have accepted early on that they weren't going to, and so there was no point in playing Mike Wright. But yeah, it was a great performance from Alabama's side in all 3 facets. I thought offense, defense, and special teams. Everybody brought it. It wasn't a perfect game by any means. There's still some things to work on, but they certainly seem to be heading in the right direction, Mick.
Guys, hang out with us, shoot us a comment or two, and have a little conversation in the comment section. And remember, like and subscribe as you hang out with us here on Monday Night Quarterback. We come on every 7 o'clock Monday and talk Crimson Tide football. Hit the thumbs up. That's a way of saying Roll Tide. We're going to talk with two more experts after Clint and I's conversation ends, and Joseph Hastings, who's blanketing recruiting coverage all across the country right now concerning Alabama, and then Jimmy Stein, he's got a PhD in Alabama football. He's coming up at the end of the show. Alabama and their wide receivers starting to build some chemistry. I thought that Ja'Cory Brooks looked really good. Jermaine Burton missed on a couple of deep balls, still had good numbers in the game, but he 3 times where it was like, you know what? Those guys get down pat. That's going to be another threat. And then there's some more receivers that are about to be back on the field for Alabama.
Yeah, one of the big things that I thought was interesting is how much Nick Saban talked about how they wanted their, Ja'Cory Brooks, Jermaine Burton, and Trayshawn Holden. They really don't like any of those guys too much in the slot. In years past, when you had the 4 first-round receivers all in the same wide receiver room, they felt very comfortable moving those guys around quite a bit. Now, Jalen Waddle was primarily a slot guy, but Judy could play outside or inside. Devontae Smith could. Henry Ruggs could. So you saw a lot of moving and really trying to exploit different matchups, but it really didn't matter who was lining up where because they were going to be successful because they were all kind of interchangeable, at least to some degree. With this group, Jermaine Burton, according to the coaching staff, he feels a lot more comfortable playing outside. And through those first, 3 games, he was playing north of 50% of his snap share in the slot. And then against, Vanderbilt on Saturday, that was actually cut in half. And you saw him perform a lot better when he was, didn't have to move around a lot. He was able to focus solely on being an outside receiver. That helped him. Ja'Cory Brooks didn't see nearly that same amount of snap share in the slot, but he was still playing, inside quite a bit. They limited him. I think he was around 10% on Saturday. A lot of his stuff was on the outside, and he had a ton of success. And I also find it very interesting, and we've kind of seen this in the past or saw glimpses of it, but we're really starting to see it this year, is that connection between Bryce Young and Ja'Cory Brooks in those crucial, up-tempo moments when you need something, whether it be late in the game and you got to go up-tempo. They did it on, their second drive of the game against Vanderbilt, decided to go tempo, which everybody's been wanting them to. And guess what? They had a lot of success doing it. Bryce Young looked very comfortable. He was getting it to Brooks, and I think it was, 4 straight attempts or targets to Brooks. He converted all 4 and scored a touchdown. And then from there, he went for 6 catches for 117 yards and a touchdown. And all of that happened within the first, I think 2 minutes into the second quarter. He had pretty much gotten all of the targets that he was going to get for the day and had a phenomenal performance. So whether it be Ja'Cory Brooks or Jermaine Burton being more comfortable on the outside, to me, if that is the case and you watch and see how they perform there, I think that makes the return of JoJo Earl a lot more important than Tyler Harrell. I still think you need that true burner vertical threat, but I think more so you want a guy who you can rely on. They've been playing Kobe Prentice a ton in the slot because they want those other guys on the outside. You get JoJo Earl back, who I think should primarily be a slot. Now you've got that perfect combination, a guy who can create after the catch, give you a lot of that underneath stuff, and I think that's going to help your group as a whole. So I actually think that the return of Earl is really going to be beneficial for this offense.
Let's talk about another guy who is making an impact as a true freshman, Jahim Otis. He's been a beast up the middle.
Oh, he's been phenomenal, man. And we kind of knew that was coming based off of preseason trends, being named a co-starter alongside a 3-year starter going into his 4th year as the starter in DJ Dale. You kind of knew Jahim Otis was going to be the real deal, and he is not disappointed. Has he been a little inconsistent at times? Absolutely, but you see him making steady progress each and every week, and there were several moments against Vanderbilt on Saturday where he was completely immovable in those 3rd down and short, 4th down and short, and it wasn't just him creating for others by being this big, massive presence that the offensive line couldn't get blocked. It was him making some plays. And I think that you're going to see him continue to do that. And I think he's going to be very important this weekend against an Arkansas team that likes to run the football. That's kind of their identity, whether it be with their quarterback or their running backs. And so I think a guy like Jahim Otis playing inside with Tim Smith, which is, the 2 guys that got the start, 2 very good run defenders who can also, provide a little bit of pass rush, a little bit of wiggle if you need them to. But I think that's what's been special about this defensive line group as a whole, is that you have guys who are better at certain things, but the guys who are playing, I wouldn't say that any of them are too one-dimensional or too limited where by having them out there, they're a liability in some way, depending on what the offense gives you. So I think that's been huge for the defensive line. We also got to see that cheetah package. I don't know if Mick, did you notice that?
No, tell me about it.
Yeah, so it's getting Chris Braswell on the field with Dallas Turner and Will Anderson, and I think they only did it for maybe like 3 or 4 snaps, so it wasn't a ton. The opportunities didn't prevent themselves a lot. It's going to be in 3rd and 6 or longer, 3rd and 5 or longer, type situations. But I think that's going to be huge. It's those 3 guys, and then they get Justin Aboigbe on the field, who I think has been a great interior pass rusher for Alabama so far this year. I did
see that. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I think it's setting up very well. And against Vanderbilt, because the fact they like to use, silver personnel or the 2 tight end, 21 personnel. I think that Alabama wanted to go with more 3 defensive linemen, 1, true outside linebacker. A lot. You didn't see a whole lot of 2 outside linebackers on the field at the same time. But I think moving forward against Arkansas, you're certainly going to see a lot more of that. But then against Tennessee, I think that's where they'll really start to roll out that cheetah package quite a bit more, and you'll see a lot more of it. And I think that's the types of games where you'll see it, really benefit the defense.
Yeah, and with the way that some of these teams throw so much, it's definitely a benefit to be able to show that kind of versatility.
100%. And with the defensive front in general, whether you're talking about the rotation at outside linebacker or the rotation that they're building, with their interior guys, so many different combinations of players, because Aboigbe is playing really good football. Byron Young's playing fantastic football. We'll have to see what's going on with the ankle. Try to get an update on that. Jahim Otis is playing great. Tim Smith, DJ Dell, who I kind of thought would be, a lot more heavily utilized. Granted, he did, he's still seeing, quite a bit of snaps. I would say around 1/3 of them. But I would say, Jahim Otis, and he's actually the last 2 weeks, he's been the one that's gotten the start against run stopping, or against run heavy offenses. It has not been DJ Dell, which I thought was pretty interesting. We'll watch to see how that continues to transpire. You're going on the road to play, a very good Arkansas team this week, a top 20 Arkansas team. Will they trust a true freshman like Jahim Otis to be in the starting lineup for that first snap? If they do, I think that will also speak volumes. But he seems ready, man. He's playing great football.
Someone else that's kind of catching our attention as a freshman is Tyler Booker on the offensive line. I mean, this guy has forced himself in the rotation, and he seems to be someone that Alabama is going to have this year and is going to be a cornerstone for the offensive line moving forward.
Yeah, so interesting to watch that offensive line, because typically you don't want a lot of rotation there. You want to get your 5 guys locked in, get them comfortable playing with each other. And with Tyler Booker, the fact that he can switch back and forth between left and right guard with such ease, you don't see any sort of drop off with him having to do that. And you also haven't really seen a drop off with the other guys having to play with a new guy next to him, whether it be, on the right side with Dalcourt and J.C. Latham. It doesn't matter if it's EQ or it doesn't matter if it's Booker. They're all coming along and playing a lot better, especially those 2 tackles. You talk about Tyler Stein and Dalcourt there on the left side. Same thing. Doesn't matter if it's, Javian Cohen. Doesn't matter if it's Tyler Booker. They're working in unison, doing a much better job and showing growth and improvement as a unit, regardless of who's out there. And you just don't see that too often. So I think that's big. You watch a guy like Javian Cohen, who was a good player last year. He wasn't a great player, but the ceiling is certainly there. For one reason or another, he wasn't in the starting lineup to start the year. Took over at left guard a couple of weeks ago and is now in a competition with Tyler Booker. But I thought he played really good football against Vanderbilt. He played a great game. So I think the competition is helping everybody. Like I said, the tackles, J.C. Latham has been by far Alabama's best offensive lineman, in my opinion. He plays fantastic run blocking, pass protection. Doesn't matter. Tyler Stein definitely has been a steady presence at left tackle, has not been a hindrance whatsoever. He's not going to be one of these guys that's going to be a projected first-round draft pick or maybe even a second-day draft pick, but he's a good player. He's going to be playing in the NFL someday. And so I think they got some stability at their 2 tackle spots, and guard, regardless of the rotation, is making guys better, and you're still getting effective play really from all 3. So I know they want to, fans want Alabama to run the football a little bit more. I think, based off of what Nick Saban's been telling us, that's based off of what the defense has given them. If they're giving them run, situations or run looks, they're going to run the football. But if they're not, they're not going to force it. So I just think the unit's coming along really well, and it's kind of rounding into form like we all kind of thought it would.
Clint Lamb, you guys know him from BamaInsider.com. Clint, you're going to be on the show Friday night, the tailgate show. You'll talk about Alabama and Arkansas, but people can also check out your work at BamaInsider.com.
Yeah, they can. The last couple of days, I've been doing snap count observations, just talking about where certain position groups are heading. I think that's going to be a lot more important over these next 4 weeks, when you're not working into your depth as much. And, Alabama's trying to tinker and figure some things out. I do think they're working out a lot of competitions and rotations, whether you're talking about Jalen Moody and Deontay Lawson at a inside linebacker. They're figuring that out, kind of got a platoon thing going, offensive line, wide receivers, all those different things. I really do think that, over these next couple of weeks, what you've been seeing over the first month is really going to pay off as they get into some very tough games. But you can check out the snap count observations, the what we've learned, the quick hits, all that stuff over at BamaInsider.com. But also, I'm on the message boards going back and forth with people on the Talk of Champions message boards. It's a great community. So I certainly encourage you guys to go and sign up for that as well.
Hey, great stuff, Clint. And at Clint R. Lamb on Twitter, he's a great Twitter follow as well as we talk Alabama football. Another fine performance there by Clint Lamb here on Monday Night QB. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you again on Friday.
Absolutely, Mick. It was good talking to you, and I'll talk to you soon, brother.
Hey, thank you so much. Guys, this is Monday Night Quarterback. It's presented by Westgate Luxury Condominiums. That's right next to Bryant-Denny Stadium. Find out more at westgateal.com. It is the luxury of luxury. Alice is your real estate agent. She can get you in a unit over there, 1 to 5 bedroom units, and they are luxurious. So if you're looking for some rental property, you're looking to move to town, Westgate right there next to Bryant-Denny Stadium is the spot. All right, he knows recruiting like Alice knows real estate. His name is Joseph Hastings, and he's our man with On 3 that is combing the sidelines of high schools all across the country to tell us what's going on with Alabama. What is going on, man? How you been?
Mick, I'm doing excellent, and anytime America's team, aka the Dallas Cowboys, get to play on TV, I'm excited about it. That's my favorite team, so I'm in a particularly good mood on this Monday night.
Yeah, we got to get you through this so that you can go watch Monday Night Football, and hope for you that maybe the next triplets is heading to Dallas.
I hope so.
Yeah, and then maybe they can figure out a way to win some football games. The problem is that the Eagles with Jalen Hurts are pretty good right now, former Alabama guy, as you know. But let's talk a little recruiting on a Monday night. Thoughts on how visits to Alabama went for a trio of 5-star prospects. How'd it go?
Yeah, so it's kind of surprising, right, that for Vanderbilt, Alabama was able to bring in 3 5-star prospects, 3 of the top 20 players in their respective classes. Alabama was able to host Desmond Ricks, 2024 5-star cornerback on campus, and they hosted these two kids, James Smith, Quay Rousseau. I don't know if we talked about them before. Yes, we have. They're the Montgomery Alabama duo, the ones we talk about continuously. 2 of the top, if not the top 2 targets remaining for Alabama in the 2023 class. All 3 of them were on campus, and I spoke with 2 of them, James and Quay, and I also spoke with the mother of Desmond Ricks, Ebony Ricks. So let's start off with Quay Rousseau since he's on the screen there. Rousseau is more of the talker between the 2 of them. They're going to be a package deal at the next level. He told me that it was pretty much kind of more the same. They've been on campus multiple times this year and last. He did see some things differently, though, in terms of how Alabama used their linebackers, sending 3 linebackers at the quarterback in some packages. So he took notice of that while watching the game against Vanderbilt. He liked his experience, of course. It's never a bad time in Tuscaloosa for him. And he also said that he scheduled a return trip to Tuscaloosa for the Mississippi State game on October 22nd. He's considering a visit to the Texas A&M game. That would be an unofficial on October 8th. And then he's going to take his official visit to Alabama in December. So from now until they sign in December, the 2 of them sign, they could potentially be visiting Alabama 3 more times. That's very encouraging for the Crimson Tide, especially since there aren't any trips right now locked into Georgia, which is the school that leads on the On3 recruiting prediction machine, or to Auburn, which is another school that I know that they like. It's the closest school to them. They've been there plenty of times. They'll take an official visit to Florida next month, and then they're looking to take one to Ohio State as well. But just talking with Quay, it just really seems that Alabama is continuing to do all the right things there. He enjoyed his time there. As for James Smith, he's not really much of a talker. I did get him to talk a little bit, but it wasn't about the visit. It was about what he wore to the visit. He wore a Rick and Morty shirt and some great Nike shorts and Jordan Retro 5 green bean shoes. So that was pretty interesting. He went on about those. James is a really great kid. Top ranked defensive lineman on the On3 2023 rankings. You look at him and he's just a really disruptive player. He's only 17 years old. He's only going to continue to develop from a physical standpoint. And he said he enjoyed his trip as well. He said it's never a dull moment with Alabama. He likes the coaching staff, likes defensive line coach Freddie Roach, and just the type of person that he is, and also the type of coach that he is. So, he's obviously going to be joining Quay on those visits to Alabama in the future. The one to Mississippi State, and then the official in December. But, the Crimson Tide are really doing a good job here. It's interesting that the RPM favors Alabama for James and then favors Georgia for Quay. That's not going to be the case. These two are going to the same school at the next level. Just remains to be seen which one that is. As for Desmond Ricks, this is an interesting prospect because I talked with him a couple of months ago, and he told me that he was considering the possibility of reclassifying to the 2023 class. I still need to get in touch with him and kind of see where things are going in terms of what he wants to reclassify or not, or if he's dead set on staying in the 2024 class. But his mother, Ebony, told me that it was a great trip. They loved being able to speak with Nick Saban. He posted on Instagram a couple of photos of him listening intensely to what Coach Saban had to say. And, Coach Saban is a defensive backs guy, so obviously Desmond gravitates to that, and he was really receptive of the message that Saban was delivering to him. They're going to be looking at returning to Alabama again. The A&M visit is a possibility, not really too likely since they may be visiting Miami on October 8th, but they'll probably return for the Iron Bowl on November 26th. So, Alabama will get them on campus 2 times this season, most likely. The Crimson Tide, Travaris Robinson, cornerbacks coach there, doing an excellent job of pursuing him, being in contact with not only Desmond, but his mom and father, Vernon. So, the RPM, honestly, I agree with the RPM on this one. I think Alabama is the team to beat at this point. LSU is also in the mix. You can't rule out North Carolina. He's a Virginia native, so it's nearby. You can't rule out some other schools as well, but, like Texas A&M and Oklahoma. But I really like where Alabama is trending with Desmond, especially after this most recent visit.
He's Joseph Hastings hanging out with us here on Monday Night Quarterback. Like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, hit the bell as you hang out with us. So anytime we go live covering Alabama like a blanket as the Crimson Tide head into Arkansas this week for a showdown with the Razorbacks. We're talking recruiting right now. And one of the guys that we're curious about is Keon. Keeley took an unofficial visit to Ohio State Saturday. Should Alabama fans be concerned?
That's a really good question because it's not good for Alabama, right? Like, obviously they would have wanted him to go to the Vanderbilt game, and he's going to be taking an official visit for the Texas A&M game, but you wouldn't want him to visit a school that is now considered your biggest threat. You don't want him to visit a couple of weeks before, the Texas A&M game, which, look, it is going to be a great atmosphere. It's going to be, fantastic. In terms of the students pouring in, the fans pouring in. Bryant-Denny Stadium is going to be very electric, but it's also going to be really crowded with a ton of recruits. And, is Keeley the kind of kid who would want more of a one-on-one experience? If so, that doesn't necessarily bode well with a visit like the Texas A&M game. I think Alabama will be fine because he did go for the Ohio State Notre Dame game. He took his official visit to Ohio State earlier this month for that one. So I think it'll be fine, but obviously Alabama would have liked him on campus this past weekend instead of at Ohio State. The trip seemed to have gone well for him. Him and his mother, they enjoyed their time there. Larry Johnson had a couple of position meetings with him. They're really they really like Larry Johnson. He's a guy who's developed Chase Young, the Bosa brothers. Obviously has a really great resume. They like what they hear from him and how Keeley would be utilized if he was to go to Ohio State. And I think some of those same things that he likes about Notre Dame, he likes about Ohio State in terms of being in the Midwest, the type of culture that's there, the cold, like those kind of small factors I think play into it. And then also the football side of things. So yes, I would say that Ohio State is the biggest threat to Alabama right now. But look, the Crimson Tide are currently the school set to receive the last visit from Keon Keeley. He may take an official visit to Florida for the LSU game October 15th, but I still am going to side with Alabama for right now. Just give it, obviously there's the post-visit high right now with Ohio State. Give it a couple weeks. He'll get on campus to Alabama. You'll start to hear a lot of positive signs there, in my opinion, because I think, if there's one thing Nick Saban's good at, it's closing, him and his staff. So I think they'll do a good job there. It's a little bit closer than I initially thought it was back when I submitted my prediction. Last month with a 65% confidence. I would probably move it down to about 60 right now, 55 or 60. It's a little bit, it's a little bit lower now just because of the threat of Ohio State, but I still think Alabama is the school trending right now in terms of, the one most likely to land him. And it all kind of depends on when he wants to make that decision too. We've heard end of October, maybe sometime in November, maybe even December. So it kind of depends there, but really interested to see if he takes any more visits after the Alabama one.
Alabama had two big commitments last week. Renaud and Hale both came the Crimson Tide's way. Who's next to commit?
That's a good question because, Keon could be that one. Let's say he goes to Ohio, to Alabama, has a really good official visit, October 8th to the 9th, comes back home, says, you know what, this is the school for me. I decommitted after visiting at the end of July. I decommitted from Notre Dame shortly after that visit to Alabama. This kind of reaffirmed it for me. I think Keon could be a candidate. We don't necessarily know with him, though, because he's kind of been back and forth on what he's going to do in terms of a decision timeline. David Hobbs is someone we're looking at too, 5-star defensive lineman out of North Carolina. He's potentially taking a visit for the Texas A&M game, officially visiting for the Mississippi State game, two potential visits to Alabama in the span of a couple of weeks. That could seal the deal with him. I know North Carolina is the school that's trending on the RPM. That will get adjusted. Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, those are the top three schools right now. We're obviously still paying attention to Centurion Perkins, the Ole Miss linebacker commit. We talked about him before plenty of times, so I won't really bring up too much, but he still is a flip candidate for the Crimson Tide. Could be somebody that flips at any moment. Honestly, that's kind of the vibe that we've been getting from him, or he may not flip at all. So it really kind of depends on what he's thinking, what he wants to do. I think he would want to take a visit to Alabama first, but he's someone that we're obviously still continuing to pay attention to. Jaren Hamilton, he's probably the last one I'll mention here. Wide receiver out of Gainesville, Florida. Had to say Gainesville, Florida since I'm from there, but yes, he's a wide receiver out of Buchholz High School, being recruited by Alabama despite Jalen Hale's recent commitment, as you mentioned. And he's someone that we really like at On3. We bumped him up from unranked to the number 20 wide receiver in the country. We love his skill set. On3's Charles Power thinks very highly of him, and so does Alabama. They're hoping to get him on campus at some point this season. It's probably going to be for an official visit for the Iron Bowl, November 26th. I think Alabama's trending right now, and honestly, he may just decide at any point, hey, Alabama's my best option out of the group of schools I'm considering. I'm going to go ahead and secure my spot. Make sure make sure I'm in this class and start recruiting for the Tide. So, those are the four I would highlight for now, but who knows? Recruiting is funny, man. And anything can happen. Anything can really happen.
Well, Joseph, there's a big football game for you on right now, so I've got to let you go. But tell everyone how they can follow Joseph Hastings and the things that you're working on at Bama, BamaInsider.com.
Yeah, so follow me on Twitter at Joseph A. Hastings. I'm continuing to do the football coverage. We put up some post-visit content. Andrew Bone and I, interviews with James Smith, Quay Rousseau, Desmond Ricks' mother, Keon Henderson, we have an interview of a new defensive lineman offer in the 2025 class, Zion Grady. Basketball official visit recap as well. So we're dipping into that football and basketball recruiting as well. We want to kind of bring a whole whole perspective there on Alabama in general in terms of the recruiting front. So we're continuing to put out coverage on there on the Talk of Champions message board. We're answering your questions. Going to have a Bama Insider Roundtable on Wednesday again, and my Thursday Cup of Joe piece on Thursday. So very excited, about what we're doing here at Bama Insider, and thank you so much, Mick, for providing us the platform here and talking with us and talking some recruiting, and the football team as well. So excited about Saturday's game against Arkansas and the Texas A&M game after, and just be sure to follow us for all the coverage.
Hey, thanks, Joseph. Great work again, my friend. We'll do it again next Monday night.
Thanks, Mick. Take care, man.
You too. Have a great night. Hopefully your Cowboys do something. Hey, as you guys hang out with us here on Monday Night Quarterback, like, subscribe, hit the bell. That's how you know when we go live. Anytime you hit that bell, we go live, boom, you're there. And the thumbs up is your way of saying roll tide as we hang out with you on Monday Night Quarterback, presented by Westgate Luxury Condominiums. All right, let me bring him on. He's the dean of Alabama knowledge on the show, and that is Jimmy Stein, who joins us here. What's going on, my man? How you been?
A dean, huh? That's a dean. I think that's better than professor. Let's go with that's better than professor, better than teacher. Dean, I like it.
You got that kind of knowledge, Jimmy. That's what you bring to the table at QB_country.com. Hangs out with us on every Monday Night QB. And we got a lot to talk about. I want your take on this Alabama Vanderbilt game. Look, it wasn't fair competition, 55-3. But at the same time, Alabama made some progress. Let's start with the offensive line. You really liked Tyler Stein and what he was able to do to his former team.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you have to know that Tyler Stein was fired up for this matchup. Not that he left Vanderbilt on bad terms, but I'm sure he wanted to prove to his teammates and his former coaches that he's come to Alabama to not ratchet up his game another notch and improve. And that's what happens when you practice against Will Anderson and Dallas Turner every day on the practice field. Tyler Stein played extremely well in the game and was rewarded with Alabama staff naming him a player of the week. He's only the second offensive lineman in 4 games to be given that designation. So, he played really well. Alabama noted in naming him player of the week that he did not give up a single pressure. That's hard to do regardless of who you're playing. And, hey, I've read a lot about, that look at the competition. When you look at Alabama's numbers, when you look at how Alabama played, consider the competition. Well, good teams are supposed to beat the crap out of bad teams. You're supposed to do that if you're a good team. Alabama did exactly what a good team is supposed to do, and that's soundly beat an outmatched opponent. So Alabama did that on the offensive line as well. Like I said, led by Tyler Stein. I was impressed with the entire offensive line. I thought it was their best performance yet. I think they've improved a little bit each week. And now going into Arkansas, I feel like this is a really good offensive line. It's even deep. It's sort of playing 6 guys with that first team when you include freshman Tyler Booker, who once again got snaps with the ones. Not a starter, not playing quite as many snaps as Cohen and Ekiyor are guard, but playing 6 guys. And I think there's some increasing confidence. I will say this group looks a little better to me in pass protection than run blocking, but the run blocking is improving, no question about it.
They'll be tested this Saturday against Arkansas. And Jimmy, one familiar face that'll be with the Razorbacks is former Alabama player Drew Sanders. He's off to a tremendous start right now for the Hogs.
Really is playing great. Real happy for him. I know Alabama was disappointed to see him go. He was recruited to stay. Coach Saban has not been shy about stating multiple times that they wanted Drew to stay and were planned to move him inside, which is kind of where he's playing at Arkansas. But one thing I think fans need to note, and this gets a little complex, this is a little football 404 and not 101, but Arkansas plays a really unique defense. They play what's called a 3-3-5 stack. It's hugely different from Alabama's 3-4 over-under. And really what that means in simplistic terms is Yes, he's listed as the Mike linebacker, as right in the middle of that Arkansas defense, but they move that guy around. He's sort of the playmaker of the front seven. They disguise where he is. He doesn't line up in the same place every time. And that's why, even though his listed position is Mike, he leads the nation in sacks because he's often lining up outside, which is where he played at Alabama last year. So it really is apples to oranges if you're trying to compare what Drew Sanders is doing at Arkansas to what the inside backers are doing at Alabama. They really play two different positions, even though I realize it's designated the same in terms of title, but the responsibilities are far different. Drew is sort of the centerpiece of that Arkansas defense, which speaks a lot about what the Arkansas coaches feel about him. And hey, it's not a surprise. We saw how good Drew was last season at Alabama, but Alabama's got Will Anderson and Dallas Turner, and when you got those two, it was hard to find snaps for another outside linebacker.
Guys, as you hang out with us here on Monday Night Quarterback, like, subscribe, hit the thumbs up as we do this every 7 o'clock Central Time on Monday, recapping Alabama's performance from the Saturday before. Hanging out with Jimmy right now, talking all about this Alabama football team. They play Arkansas on Saturday. They just took care of Vandy. And let's talk more about what we've seen in the past moving forward to this Saturday. Alabama has really struggled on the road. Now, they're a 17-point favorite against Arkansas in Fayetteville for a readout. Your thoughts on their road woes leading into this game?
Well, it's a trend, right? If it was once or twice, you're like, well, that just happens. It is hard to play on the road. But look, in the last 5 road trips, Alabama's played poorly 4 of those 5 times. Coach Saban went out of his way before the Vanderbilt game and addressed this. He laid it out to his team that we used to go on the road with what he called hateful competitors. I think that's him challenging the team to get a little more physical, a little meaner on the road. He did that prior to the Vandy game. He saw what was coming. But Alabama's not played great on the road. And like I said, in 4 of 5 games, only playing really well against Mississippi State and Starkville last season. So what's even more worrisome, Mick, is I believe, and I don't even think this is an out there opinion. I think everyone's going to be with me here. Arkansas is a better team than Alabama's played on the road in those 5 games. Arkansas is better than Texas. They're better than the Florida team last year, the Auburn team last year, even probably better than the Texas A&M team that beat Alabama on the road last year. This is going to be a heck of a challenge. Good team, playing a little mad. Alabama still has a lot to prove. And hopefully what's going to happen here, Mick, is the communication on the offensive line is better. I hope that's the case Saturday. I think that's been an issue on the road. And just keeping your poise and playing through the noise on both sides of the ball. Will Anderson himself said in Austin, Texas, that was a really challenging atmosphere. Well, you have to sort of thrive in that atmosphere to do well on the road. And hopefully Alabama will get back to that. But if you're not worried about this, you haven't really been watching Alabama the last 2 years. I mean, again, this is 4 of 5 times now. This is something that has to be solved because, in my opinion, all of Alabama's toughest games in the remainder of this season, they're all on the road.
Yeah, I think this is the toughest road schedule I can remember in the last 20 years. I mean, this is a really tough road schedule for Alabama. But the good news is, Jimmy, as I feel like the connection between Bryce Young and the wide receivers is starting to click, and that's one of the Achilles heels for Arkansas. Your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, perfect. Great point. Great, a good analysis. Arkansas is dead last in FBS football and defensive pass efficiency, dead last. I don't really know what that means. I've been watching the sport for 40 years, and you'd have a hard time convincing me, Mick, that Arkansas is not as good in the back end as Utah State or I don't know, New Mexico. Arkansas is going to have athletes, so I know they're ranked last. I doubt literally that they are the worst in all of FBS football. But the point is, look, you look at the stats. I'll give a good example. This is sort of tough to follow here, but last year the numbers said that Cincinnati just could not defend the run, that they weren't good defending the run at all. Even though Alabama rarely went into a game last fall with a Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback, did Alabama come out and just run and pound and run and pound? Well, the numbers dictated that that's what you do to beat Cincinnati, and that's exactly what Alabama did because Bill O'Brien's pretty good at this. Nick Saban's certainly very good at this. And those same numbers that Alabama looked at to determine, hey, you can run the ball in Cincinnati, well, hey, you can throw the ball on Arkansas. So I suspect that's exactly what Alabama's going to do. The numbers say to do it. This is what Alabama does best. You got the Heisman winner at quarterback. And it's rounding into form a little bit. Let's say in those first couple of games, Alabama's pass game, the timing was a couple feet off. Now I think it's just inches off. It's better. I think Bryce is now getting used to the game speed of a Jermaine Burton, a Ja'Cory Brooks, who had over 100 yards in the first half Saturday against Vanderbilt. These freshmen playing in their very first collegiate games, like Kobe Prentice and Isaiah Bond, a little more used to things. Bryce has thrown to them a little bit more as they work with the ones in practice. Right. So I think it's coming around, and this is probably the right opponent. If the over-under is 350 yards passing this Saturday, I would go with the over, and that's not a number that Alabama's hit a lot in 2022, but I would go with the over even if it was 350. I think there's going to be a big night throwing the ball. The numbers dictate it, and this is what Alabama does best.
Yeah, wasn't it like 23-8 or something, run to pass ratio in the first half on Saturday or something like that? It was very lopsided. Yeah. And, Nick Saban's always about a balanced attack. And he said, well, that's because that's what the defense gave us. With that said, it kind of builds into what you would expect to see on Saturday.
Yeah, that's right. And I know that's what Coach Saban said, and I'm sure he was being honest about that. But I'll also say this. I said all last week that the Vanderbilt scheme Alabama was going to use for Vanderbilt had a little to do with Vanderbilt. Didn't have to do with our film study of, hey, this is how you beat Vanderbilt. Because this is how Alabama beat Vanderbilt. They put 11 players on the field better than Vanderbilt's 11 players, and that's how they won that game. Right. It wasn't about the X's and O's and Bill O'Brien staying up, 24 hours a day working on a scheme. I think what Alabama did was work on what they needed to work on with these 6 tough games coming up. And that was the pass game. Because if you get Bryce and these receivers down with their timing and you get that resembling last season, now it's going to be easier to run the ball. And we sort of saw it in microcosm this past Saturday. Alabama threw it a lot in the first half, had a lot of success, most passing yards for Bryce in his career in the first half. What did they do in the second half? They ran the ball. A little easier to run the ball when you've been throwing it all over the place in the first half. You kind of worn Vandy out. Chasing the whole length and width of the field. I think it was really to prepare the team for what they needed to do on these next 6 games. Because this 6-game stretch, Mick, this is tough. 4 of these 6 are on the road. Even the 2 home games, with A&M and Mississippi State are against quality teams. I'll tell you this, over these next 6 games, Alabama's playing a tougher schedule than Georgia and Ohio State. Not that their schedules are light, but among the contenders, no one is playing a 6-game stretch like Alabama is. So Alabama needs to come out firing on all cylinders, not just for Arkansas, but for the whole stretch. I think that's what Saturday was working on. Just, hey, what do we need to work on? And we don't care so much about, scheming something particular for Vanderbilt.
Great stuff, Jimmy Stein. What's happening on the message board, BamaInsider.com these days?
Quite a bit. Been a big football mood. I am all the time, but really sort of woke up today and like, wow, this is Arkansas week. This is when it gets real serious. I put a prediction up, a too early prediction up, made a bold proclamation about what I think we might get out of the wide receivers the rest of the season. Did this real interesting study that looked at Rocket Sanders, Arkansas's running back. He's the leading rusher in the SEC in terms of amount of carries and total yardage, but showed putting together some numbers that, Alabama's running backs average more yards a carry than Rocket Sanders does, and he leads the whole league in rushing. So we had a lot of in-depth football talk on the Bama Insider message board today because it gets real this week. This is a really good team, and I'm not trying to over-dramatize. It's just obvious. This is a very losable game for Alabama. It would be for Georgia and Ohio State too.
Yep, no doubt about it. Well, thanks, Jimmy. Let's do it again next Monday night.
Oh, looking forward to it. Thanks so much, Mick.
Hey, anytime. Always great to talk to Jimmy Stein, and always great to hang out with you guys right here on Monday Night Quarterback. Make sure you like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up, and that's a way of saying you appreciate it. Tonight's show. We've got a bunch of stuff coming up for you here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Jay Barker and I will be on tomorrow afternoon. We've got anytime Nick Saban has a press conference, we're going to throw that on. The players as well. Andrew Bone's recruiting shows tomorrow night. You got Kyle Henderson. He does a call-in show. He's on a lot as well. Thursday, Jay and I again. And then Friday, you've got the tailgate show, which goes from 6 to 8 here. You can hear it on radio around the state of Alabama on Saturday. You can watch it, though, being recorded Friday night, 6 to 8. And then after the football game on Saturday, you've got the post-game show, Jay Barker and I back together again. But all that stuff, all you got to do is like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up. We appreciate you being a part of it. Right now, you can join BamaInsider.com. Now that we're part of On3, right, like this hat, for $1. That's an entire year for $1. They've extended this offer to give you an opportunity to join us, to be part of everything that's going on right now in recruiting with Andrew Bone and Joseph Hastings, the message boards, and all the team stuff with Clint Lamb and Jimmy Stein, who are on our show tonight. So do yourself a favor. It's $1 for a year. If you don't like it, you can always unsubscribe at the end of a year, but at least you should do it to find out if it's the coverage that you're looking for, Alabama coverage moving forward. Our show is presented by Westgate Luxury Condominiums right there next to Bryant-Denny Stadium. You're talking about oversized balconies. You're talking about the convenience of the best location in town. It's right there by the Strip, the Walk of Champions, by Denny Chimes, by campus. All of that stuff is right there. And they bring us the show each and every week. Find out for yourself at westgateal.com. 1 to 5 bedroom units that go from 900 to 3,000 square feet. And that's it for the show. Chris Daughtry behind the scenes, another fantastic job. I'm Mick Gillispie, thanking you guys most of all. The comment section, always on point. We're going to get you ready for Alabama and Arkansas. That's coming up this Saturday. The meat of the schedule, as Jimmy said, is here now. So make sure you guys stay tuned and roll tide, everybody. Good night.